On the night of what should have been our 30th wedding anniversary, I found myself walking towards Bistro Luxe, a place that consistently graced the covers of Gourmet Living magazine. My husband, Richard, had made the reservation, hinting mysteriously about a special surprise. As I arrived, a somewhat pretentious waiter immediately directed me towards an exclusive VIP corner booth. As I approached our designated table, I froze. Seated beside Richard was a woman I'd never seen before. Her blonde, sculpted hair framed a face that seemed polished to perfection, exuding a cool confidence. "Veronica, darling, you made it," Richard said, standing up, his smile tight and unnatural. "I'd like you to meet Tiffany Bloom. Tiffany recently joined my firm as a senior marketing consultant." A knot tightened in my chest. Tiffany arched a perfectly shaped eyebrow and extended a manicured hand. "Veronica, it's such a pleasure. Richard speaks of you so highly." A chilling premonition washed over me. Why on earth would Richard bring another woman to our anniversary dinner? "Please, have a seat," Richard prompted, carefully avoiding my gaze. The waiter poured champagne, and Richard raised his glass for a toast. 30 years? Quite the milestone. Over the years, his once fiery red hair had faded to a coppery gray, a stark contrast to the cold, calculating gaze he fixed on me. A waiter approached with a silver cloche, announcing it as a special presentation for the lady. Before leaving us alone, Richard nervously encouraged, "Go ahead, darling, open it." Tiffany was discreetly recording the moment on her iPhone. I lifted the cloche. Instead of a celebratory cake or sparkling jewelry, I found a legal document bound with a stark white ribbon. "Divorce papers?" I whispered, disbelief choking my voice. "Veronica," Richard stated, his voice flat and impersonal, like he was dictating a memo. "I think we should be mature about this. I want to start fresh. You can have the condo downtown. I'll take the lake house and the brokerage accounts. Seems equitable, wouldn't you say?" Tiffany gave a subtle, knowing smile and placed her hand ever so discreetly on Richard's knee under the table. Equitable? To end 30 years like this? In front of her? "Veronica, please," Richard hissed, lowering his voice. "This is a public place. Don't cause a scene." I stood up, grabbing my champagne glass. "Richard, for 30 years I've curated your art collection, planned your social gatherings, supported your ambition, and this is how you repay me? I gave you everything you ever wanted." He leaned forward, his eyes pleading. A beautiful life, security, prestige, but never loyalty. Champagne splattered across his face, staining his tailored suit. Tiffany shrieked and recoiled. Gasps rippled through the surrounding tables. "Happy anniversary," I said, slamming the glass down, the stem snapping, and walked out of the restaurant. Tears only began to fall once I was outside, the cool New York air hitting my face. He really did that. He dumped me in front of his mistress. He did what? "My friend, Susan," exclaimed the next morning, outrage etched on her face. We were huddled in her cozy kitchen, cradling mugs of hot coffee. I'd been up all night replaying the scene in my head and had rushed to her house at dawn. 30 years of marriage over at Bistro Luxe in front of that bimbo? Like he was showing you off as being replaced. "Who is Tiffany?" Susan demanded. "I don't know, but she's at least 20 years younger than me, with perfect highlights and an MBA, I replied. As I sipped my coffee, fragmented memories flashed before my eyes. You know, when Richard and I met, he was just an associate at a small law firm. I was already a successful architect, winning awards for my work. He showed up to an awards dinner and said, "Your designs are so visionary." I was designing entire city districts. Susan nodded. She was one of the few friends who knew me from the start of my career. When Richard wanted to start his own practice, I gave up everything. I was designing entire skyscrapers. I designed his logo, helped him with his marketing materials, and hosted elaborate dinner parties for his clients. I continued staring out the window. Bit by bit, I also found my own path, historical preservation. Clients I met at Richard's firm. Eventually, my business was a vital piece for a bunch of architects. "That's right," Susan said. "You are nationally recognized for your preservation work." And this is the reward I get? It's just cruel. My phone buzzed. It was a text from my daughter, Emily. "Mom, can you come over this afternoon? Need to talk." Emily's message held an urgency. I told her about the previous night's events, and she must have been shaken. That afternoon, when I arrived at Emily's sleek, modern home, her usual warm smile was absent. Her husband, Ben, a tech entrepreneur, looked equally serious. "Come in, Mom," Emily said, hugging me tightly, and led me to the living room. Ben, sitting on the designer's sofa, opened his laptop. "We've been looking into this divorce situation after hearing about it. Emily and I suspected something was off and spent all night researching. After I saw your designs displayed as his, something seemed extremely wrong." Ben turned the laptop screen towards me. It displayed a record of unusual transactions in his business bank accounts. "Last month, when I was helping him with taxes, I noticed some irregularities. A substantial amount of money, millions of dollars, transferred to other companies." Emily pulled up a series of scanned documents, my signature on them. "And then, yesterday, we found these. There were stock transfers, corporate appointments, real estate transactions. I had no memory of signing any of them." "Did he forge my signature?" I asked, feeling a rising panic. "It's worse, Mom." Emily's eyes blazed with anger. "The name Tiffany Bloom keeps coming up. The woman your husband took you out with." "Yes, the woman who was with you last night." I grasped the connection, the implications hitting me like a physical blow. I suddenly felt weak in the knees. Ben said quietly, "But this isn't just an affair. Richard has been diverting funds from your accounts and using your signature to set up complex offshore trusts." He scrolled through the laptop screen. "Even worse," Ben continued, "he's been listing all of the architects you designed as his own. Your name is nowhere to be found." "Even worse?" My voice cracked. As I looked at the documents, I saw evidence of my successes: the remodel of a major building in Chicago, a historical project in Washington, D.C., etc. My designs, my vision, my years of work. Everything's under his name. Your work, your achievements. "Look at this." Emily pointed to a document that claimed one of my biggest achievements to be from Richard. "Did he erase my entire career?" I asked, incredulous. "Indeed, I entrusted all contract and administrative work related to my office to Richard from the beginning. He had offered to handle it so I could focus on design, and I had entrusted everything to him because I fully trusted my husband." "Mom, do you realize that every architect's company you've built since day one he's taken for himself? It was supposed to be as his wife's projects. All your earnings should have gone to the joint account, and he's trying to say he should take the joint account. 30 years of labor," Lauren continued. "Moreover, Richard has transferred the legal ownership of your office to himself," Ethan said. "He's turned the career that's made you nationally known into profit." "But I sacrificed everything to help his practice grow." My voice trembled. "I ran his office in the morning, entertained his clients in the afternoon, and planned dinner parties for investors from abroad on weekends." "He stole my life." My voice quivered. "My dreams, my passion, my career, and now he's trying to take everything from me." Ben pulled out a business card. "A friend from college is a divorce attorney, Sarah Evans. She's very aggressive, specializes in high net worth divorces." I took the card, running my fingers over the embossed letters. "Are you going to fight, Mom?" Emily asked, looking worried. I met her gaze. Beneath the fear and pain, something dangerous began to awaken. Something like vengeance, or perhaps justice. I said quietly, "Your father is about to learn how wrong he is." Sarah Evans' office was modern and sleek. Certificates on the wall attested to her accomplishments. "Your situation isn't unique," she said, reviewing the documents. "But the planned asset concealment, misuse of signatures, and career exploitation. This goes beyond a simple affair." She opened a spreadsheet. "The settlement he's proposing, giving you the condo, is a fraction of the assets he's hiding. All assets are part of the marital estate, including the revenue from your architecture business." She opened another file. "I've also gathered evidence of him appropriating your career achievements. This amounts to infringement of intellectual property rights. First, we'll file for an emergency injunction to freeze all accounts," Sarah said. "Next, we'll track all the money he's moved and investigate Tiffany Bloom." "What about her relationship with my husband? It's been going on for years. And she's not just a mistress. In the past 6 months, she's been appointed to board of directors for 3 different design companies and the main architectural firm." Sarah outlined the strategy. First, I'll send an emergency injunction to his lawyer. Let's see how they react. A few days later, a text from Richard arrived. We need to talk. You don't understand. I got a call from my lawyer. What have you done? Planning my next move, I visited Sarah's office. As expected, Sarah smiled with satisfaction. The notification of the injunction has reached his lawyer. He's panicking. He must be worried about what's becoming known. That's a good sign. Hearing this, I replied to the text. Richard, I am not just Richard's wife. Haven't you noticed? Or have you just been too obsessed with Tiffany Bloom? His response came instantly. Tiffany is not relevant to the issue at hand. The real problem here is what you've done with our money. I was the one who single-handedly built the company from the ground up. You were merely assisting me. Sarah Evans said, next time you see him, ask about your historical projects, the misappropriated revenue, and the forged signatures. Let's corner him. That night, a call from Richard came through, his voice strained and desperate. Veronica, what have you done? My lawyer contacted me. The accounts are frozen. Why are you so surprised? I responded calmly. Let's talk, he said. How about dinner tomorrow at the Lincoln Tavern? We need a calm place to discuss. Why do we need to discuss calmly when you took another woman out on my anniversary? You don't understand what you're doing. He lowered his voice. This isn't best for either of us, especially not for you. That sounds like a threat. It's not a threat, he immediately said. It's a fact. You built your career in the architectural industry because of me. Without my law firm and my connections, you would have been just another art school dropout. I gave you everything. His words boiled my blood. It felt like a denial of all the achievements I had created over 30 years. I could feel everything getting angrier. Fine. Tomorrow at 7 p.m., I'll meet you there. When I entered the restaurant, he was visibly nervous, fidgeting with the napkin. A pile of documents sat on the table. Veronica, there's no need to escalate this situation, he said immediately. This can be resolved amicably. Really? I said as I took a seat. What's important is what you've done with our money. Can you explain the board appointments, the offshore accounts, and the forged signatures? It was all for the benefit of the firm, he defended. You benefited just as much. Did I? And what about my design achievements? Those were company projects under my name, my designs. Yet they appeared in trade magazines as my own innovative vision, complete with my interviews. You just helped as a wife. Legally. I interrupted him. Legally, my architecture company was supposed to be an independent entity. Yet you illegally absorbed it all. All of that can be explained. Save your explanations for the forensic accountants and intellectual property experts. An investigation into your copyright infringement is also about to start. Richard's face turned pale, and he seemed to age in an instant. Catherine, what have you done? I'm simply reclaiming my name. I stood up. You've taught me a valuable lesson, that sometimes the person you trust the most can become the least trustworthy. And to think you were my soulmate. He reached out his hand. Wait, this can be resolved. I'll end things with Tiffany and return the rights to your architecture company. Just consider the firm's reputation. I brushed his hand off. For 30 years, I've considered your reputation. Now, it's my turn. The following weeks were a storm of court orders. Demands for evidence, disclosure, and legal maneuvers left me dizzy. One evening, a message from an unknown number arrived. Let's meet tomorrow at 2 p.m. at the downtown cafe. Come alone, Tiffany Bloom. I hesitated and consulted Sarah. It might be a trap, but it could be worth meeting her. You might gain new information, but if you're unsure, always contact me. With her support, I decided to meet Tiffany the next day. Tiffany was sitting at a corner table in downtown cafe. Young and beautiful, she stood out even in the bustling cafe. However, as I approached, I could see she was visibly tired and nervous. I need help, she said as soon as I sat down. He seems to be setting something up to frame me. He's always been lying. In front of her was a thick folder filled with legal documents. Look at these. Offshore accounts, irregular transactions, all in my name. With your investigation starting, I'm worried I'll be made the scapegoat, and Richard will walk away unscathed. Her words clicked a piece into place. He's always used this tactic, hasn't he? Both of us realized it too late. She leaned forward. It's not too late to stop him. Let's do it together. Tiffany was resolute. Unbeknownst to me, he signed many documents in my name. She explained investment opportunities, tax strategies. All lies. Are all these signatures forgeries? I asked. He said it was just to save time, and She looked away, embarrassed. I trusted him. I did the same once. Blindly trusted him. I understand. I'll have my lawyer verify your information, but first, let's see the evidence you have. Tiffany looked relieved and opened the folder. It contained records of complex financial transactions, documents with my forged signature, and details of offshore accounts opened in my name. Richard is using me to set you up, Tiffany whispered. I thought he really loved me at first, but now... Her voice trembled. He's using me to create evidence of financial fraud and will pin the blame on me when the investigation starts. Why are you cooperating with me now? I looked at her skeptically. Tiffany pulled out her smartphone and played a recording. Richard's voice was clear. Don't worry, Tiffany. Catherine's signature is already on the documents. If an investigation starts, she'll take the blame. We won't know anything. The recording stirred anger in me, but also suggested she might truly be a collaborator. I'll pass this information to my lawyer, Sarah. I'll be in touch, I said as I left. This is a trap, Sarah asserted immediately after meeting with me. Upon examining the contents of the folder, these documents were all created recently. There's also a high likelihood that Tiffany's recording has been edited. Is she not a victim then? No, she is Richard's accomplice, Sarah revealed, showing a tablet with a surveillance video. This is Tiffany visiting Richard's office yesterday. They are planning something, laughing together. Viewing the footage, my heart sank. Tiffany was not a victim, but part of Richard's scheme. They're hoping we'll make a rash mistake, Sarah said, but let's be smarter in our approach. The next day, I sent a message to Tiffany. I appreciate your information. After consulting with my lawyer, we've decided to collaborate on gathering evidence. Tomorrow, there are important documents that need to be found in Richard's office. Can you help? The response was quick. Of course. What do you need? I relayed a detailed plan, borrowing the office key, accessing Richard's laptop, and locating specific files. Though all the information was fabricated, Tiffany readily agreed. Meanwhile, Emily and Ben were collecting real evidence. They gathered proof of Richard's true financial activities, forged signatures, and the usurpation of my architecture work. Let's see what Richard and Tiffany do next, Sarah said. They're likely to fall into their own trap. As expected, an angry message from Richard arrived. Catherine, what are you doing? I heard from Tiffany you were trying to break into my office. That's criminal, I replied calmly. What are you talking about? I haven't planned anything with Tiffany. His next message was threatening. I have evidence. Tiffany recorded it. I'll use it in court. Sarah smiled with satisfaction. They exposed their own trap. Now their conspiracy is clear. A week later, Richard's law firm was hosting its annual charity gala, an event attended by industry magnates and investors. I had been warned by Richard not to attend, but Sarah had a different plan. Let's reveal the truth at this event. She said, your design work is supposed to be displayed as the achievements of Richard's company. I was scared, but my resolve was firm. On the night of the gala, dressed in an elegant black dress, I entered the venue with confidence. Richard's face filled with indignation upon seeing me. Tiffany stood by his side, her eyes wide with surprise. What are you doing here? Richard hissed quietly. Just here to see my own work? I smiled. Richard approached, urging me to leave immediately. However, it was then that his subordinate whispered to him, it's time to give his speech. Time had arrived. Reluctantly, he moved away from me. Richard stood before the microphone beginning to talk about the firm's success and innovative design vision. That's when Sarah's plan was set into motion. Suddenly, the big screen lit up displaying my design sketches, signed contracts, and photos of meetings I had conducted alone with clients. Next, surveillance footage of Richard forging my signature played. This is our company's... Richard's words faltered. The screen abruptly switched, showing his perturbed face. I took the microphone. Good evening, everyone. I am Veronica Johnson, the true creator of these designs, and the wife betrayed by the man here, Richard Johnson, and his mistress, Tiffany Bloom. The room was shocked I continued for 30 years. I dedicated my talent and effort, yet my husband stole my work presenting it as his own achievements. He has also misused company funds and forged my signature to blame me tonight. I reveal the truth, as evidence prepared by Vanessa continued to be displayed. Richard stood frozen in anger and fear. Tiffany attempted to flee the venue but was met by waiting police officers. Richard Johnson, you are under arrest for financial fraud and document forgery, an officer declared. I watched quietly as he was handcuffed and led away. 3 months later, I stood in front of a small office. The sign Veronica Johnson Architect shone brightly. I had reclaimed my true self. "You're amazing, Mom," Emily said, placing her hand on my shoulder. Inside the gallery, my latest works were on display. Building designs, historical concepts, and new artistic expressions, and all credited to me and my achievements. "It's never too late," I smiled, "for a new beginning." In a corner of the gallery was an unfinished design that I had begun 30 years ago. Now, I finally had the time and freedom to complete it. Richard was sentenced to several years in prison, and Tiffany was also charged as an accomplice. His firm went bankrupt, and I received fair compensation during the divorce mediation. However, the most valuable thing I regained was my identity. As I signed my name as Veronica Johnson, I smiled,